Some doors should never be opened. Some whispers should never be answered. And some reflections, they aren't yours at all. There are stories so terrifying, so unexplainable, that once you hear them, they never leave you. They crawl into your mind, linger in the shadows, wait for the perfect moment. Tonight, you'll hear 3 true dreadful horror stories. Stories that have ruined lives, trapped souls, and left nothing behind but fear. But before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who loves horror. Because once these stories find you, they never let go. Are you ready?
First story, The Mirror That Lied.
They say the worst horrors aren't the ones you see. They're the ones that watch you. When you think you're alone, the whispers that slip through the cracks in the dead of night, the feeling of something unseen lurking just beyond your vision, the weight of invisible eyes staring at you from the dark. But what if those eyes weren't just in your head? What if something was really there? Tonight, I bring you a story so terrifying, so unsettling, you might start second-guessing every creak, every shadow, and every sound in your own home. This is The Watcher in the Walls. The house was supposed to be a fresh start. Daniel and his wife, Emily, had saved for years to buy a home of their own. When they found the Victorian-style house on the edge of town, it seemed perfect, spacious, beautiful, and cheap almost. Too cheap. But they ignored that part. Emily fell in love with the place instantly. The hardwood floors, the tall windows, the intricate crown molding, even the faint musty scent of something ancient lingering in the air. It felt timeless. Daniel, on the other hand, had his doubts. Something about the house felt off. Not in an obvious, this place is haunted kind of way, but in a way that made his skin crawl when he stood alone in a room for too long, like he was being watched. Noah, their 6-year-old son, didn't say much about the house. He just clutched his stuffed rabbit and stared at the walls, his tiny face unreadable. The first night, Daniel woke up to a sound, a soft, rhythmic scratching, faint, almost hesitant, coming from inside the walls. He sat up, heart pounding, listened. Silence, probably just the old pipes, or mice. Nothing to worry about. The next morning, over breakfast, Noah broke the silence. The man in the walls was whispering again last night. Daniel nearly choked on his coffee. What did you say? Noah poked at his cereal, swinging his little legs under the chair. He talks to me sometimes. Emily laughed nervously. Kids and their imaginations. Daniel forced a chuckle, but something about the way Noah said it made his stomach twist. That night, the noise returned. This time, it was closer, a slow, deliberate tapping, just inches away from the bed. Daniel pressed his ear to the wall, his breath caught in his throat. The tapping stopped. A long, tense silence, then a soft exhale, a breath, coming from inside the wall. Daniel yanked away, his heart hammering in his chest. He didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Emily was rearranging furniture in the living room when she noticed something strange. A door, small, barely 3 feet tall, hidden behind an old cabinet. It wasn't in the floor plan. Did you know this was here? She asked. Daniel shook his head. His palms were clammy as he reached for the handle. The door wouldn't budge. Not like it was locked, like something was holding it shut from the other side. That night, Daniel set up his laptop with motion-activated recording software. If there was something or someone in the walls, he'd catch it at 3:14 a.m. The footage, glitched. Just for a second, Daniel leaned forward, staring at the screen. A figure, tall, gaunt, standing at the end of the hallway. It wasn't blurry, like a shadow. It was solid, and it was half inside the wall, watching Noah's room. Then the screen went black. Daniel's breath came in short, uneven gasps. Then, on the screen, a single word appeared. Hello. The next day, Daniel went to the hardware store and bought a crowbar. Emily begged him to stop. It's an old house, Daniel. There's nothing there. But he knew. That night, when the house was silent, Daniel crept to the small door in the living room, hands trembling. He jammed the crowbar into the wood and pulled. The door snapped open, and inside was a tunnel, a narrow, rotting tunnel, filled with old clothes, yellowed bones, and something worse, a bed, a mattress, a plate with half-eaten food. Someone had been living there, watching them, sleeping just inches away, and then, at the far end of the tunnel, something moved, a low, wet breathing, slow, shuffling footsteps, then the whisper, "You shouldn't have," opened the door. Daniel scrambled back, heart in his throat. A hand shot out of the darkness. Long fingers, yellowed nails, thin as bone. Daniel slammed the door shut and bolted it. That night, he didn't sleep. The next morning, Emily and Noah were gone, their suitcases missing. A single note left on the kitchen counter. "We're not safe here." Daniel didn't call them, didn't chase after them, because deep down, he knew they were right. That night, alone in the house, he sat in the living room, staring at the small door. He could hear it now, breathing whispering the slow, deliberate, taping getting. Claserthy never found the man bit. They found the other sold brittle remains. Scraps of cloth, personal belongings, dating back decades. Daniel wasn't the first one to hear the whispers, and he wouldn't be the last. Echoes the house still stand still, waiting still watching, and maybe, just maybe, someone is watching you right now.
Second story, The Whispering Man.
You ever get the feeling that someone is there? Not just a passing shadow, not a trick of your mind, but something real. A presence that lingers, watches, follows. You lock your doors, close your windows, but deep down, you know, you're not alone. And sometimes, the ones who never leave were never invited in the first place. Tonight, I bring you a story so disturbing, so unnerving, that after this, you'll be checking over your shoulder. This is the man who never left. I should have never moved into that house. It was supposed to be temporary, just a cheap rental while I got back on my feet. It wasn't much, a tiny one-bedroom house, sitting alone on a quiet street, the kind of place people forgot about. The landlord gave me the keys with a strange look. "Just don't go messing around too much." "All right," he muttered. I laughed it off. Old houses have quirks, right? I didn't realize this house had something worse. The first night, I woke up to a sound, a click, like a door handle turning soft, slow. I held my breath, listened, silence. I got up, heart hammering, and checked the front door. Still locked, but something felt wrong, like the air in the room was heavier, like someone had been standing there, watching me sleep. I brushed it off, just my imagination. That's what I told myself. But the next night, it happened again. Click. I shot up in bed. The handle to my bedroom door was moving, turning, slowly. My stomach twisted into knots. I wasn't alone. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a lamp ready to swing. The door creaked open half an inch. I lunged, yanking it. Why, nothing. Just an empty hallway. I checked the locks, the windows, every single one untouched. I barely slept that night. But that was just the beginning. The next morning, I noticed something strange. The closet door. It was open. I never opened that closet, and yet, the door sat slightly ajar, like someone had peeked out from inside. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and slowly pulled the door open wider. The closet was empty, except for a single footprint in the dust-covered floorboards. A bare footprint, too large to be mine. A chill crept up my spine. Someone had been in there, watching me. I convinced myself it was just my imagination. It had to be. But things kept getting worse. That night, I'd hear breathing, not my own. Something deep, wet, like lungs struggling to work. And then there was the smell, a rotting, damp stench that clung to the air. It was strongest in the bedroom, right next to my bed. I started waking up with scratches on my arms. Small, thin marks, like fingernails had dragged across my skin. But the worst part, every night I locked my bedroom door, and every morning I'd wake up to find it wide open. I tried ignoring it, tried pretending it wasn't happening. But then, one night, I saw him. I woke up, the air in my room, thick with the scent of decay. My heart pounded. I turned my head on there, at the foot of my bed. He stood tall, thin, his skin gray and sagging, like it had been soaked in water for too long. His face, oh God, his face, sunken eyes, lips curled into a grin, a gaping black hole where his nose should have been. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, watching, smiling. My body was frozen in terror. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. And then he stepped closer. The floor didn't creak beneath him, like he wasn't really touching the ground. His head tilted, the grin widened, and then he whispered, "You let me in." The lights flickered, and he was gone. I barely remember packing my things. I don't even remember leaving the house. All I know is that I ran. Drove until I couldn't see that house in my rearview mirror anymore. I never went back. Didn't tell the landlord. Didn't take back my deposit. I didn't care. Because deep down, I knew that thing in the house, it wasn't just haunting me. It was waiting for the next person, for the next poor soul to move in and leave their bedroom door unlocked. Maybe that'll be you. Maybe you'll hear the click of your door handle tonight, and when you do, just know he never left. And now, he's coming for you next.
Third story, The House That Waits.
Have you ever stared at your own reflection and feel like something isn't right? Like the person staring back at you isn't really you? A tiny delay, a flicker of something unfamiliar in their eyes, a movement that feels off. What if I told you? Mirrors don't just reflect, they trap. And sometimes, the thing staring back isn't your reflection at all. Tonight, I bring you a story so terrifying, so chilling, that after this, you might cover every mirror in your house. This is the mirror that lied. It started when I moved into my grandmother's old house. She had died suddenly. No one would tell me how. Just hushed voices and pitiful glances. The house had been abandoned for years. Dust covered everything. The air smelled stale, like time had stopped. But there was one thing that wasn't covered in dust. The mirror. A huge antique mirror in the hallway. Its surface pristine, like someone had been cleaning it all these years. I should have left that. How's the moment I saw it? But I didn't. I stayed, and I learned the truth. Some reflections don't belong to you. The first time I noticed it, I thought I was imagining things. I walked past the mirror, and my reflection lingered just for a second. A slight delay, like it took a moment too long to follow my movements. I stopped, stared, nothing, just my own face staring back. I shook it off. Old mirrors have quirks. That's what I told myself, until it happened again, and this time, it smiled. But I didn't. I ran my tongue over my teeth, checking if I had made a mistake. No, my reflection was smiling, but my face was still. The grin on its lips was wrong. Too wide, too sharp. It faded slowly, like it wanted me to see it. I backed away. Something was very wrong with that mirror. That night, I covered it with a blanket. I didn't want to see it, didn't want to feel it staring at me. But, at exactly 3:12 a.m., I woke up. The blanket was on the floor, the mirror was uncovered, and in the reflection, I wasn't alone. A figure stood behind me, tall, dark, featureless, just a shadow. But I could feel it smiling. I turned. Nothing was there. But when I looked back at the mirror, it was closer. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I tried to ignore it, tried to pretend it wasn't happening. But the next morning, the whispers started, soft, muffled, coming from inside the glass. I pressed my ear against it. A voice, so close, so wrong, let me out. I stumbled backward. My reflection didn't move. It just stood there, watching, smiling, and then it blinked, but I hadn't. I ran. I tried to tell myself it was a nightmare, stress, hallucination, anything but. What I knew was real. But the next night, it proved itself to me. I was brushing my teeth, avoiding the mirror. I kept my eyes down, didn't want to see it, didn't want to give it the chance to look back. But then, my toothbrush fell into the sink. Reflexively, I looked up and there, in the mirror, I was still brushing my teeth, but my hands were empty. My reflection froze. Its eyes locked onto mine, and then it spoke. "You don't belong here." My stomach twisted. The voice. It wasn't mine. It was deeper, distorted, distorted, like something pretending to be me. And then, it raised its hand. It waved at me. A slow, mocking wave. I ran out of the bathroom. I slept with the lights on, but it didn't matter, because at exactly 3:12 a.m., I woke up. The mirror was uncovered again, and this time, my reflection was waiting. I tried to leave the house the next morning, packed a bag, threw my keys in my pocket. But when I opened the front door, I stepped into the hallway, the same house. I turned, heart pounding. The door I had just walked through was now a mirror. My reflection stared back, grinning, and then it stepped forward, through the glass, into my world, and I was pulled into the mirror. I don't know how long I've been here. Time doesn't exist in this place. Just reflections, just whispers, just me. Or the thing that used to be me. Because now, it's out there, living my life, wearing my face, and me. I'm still here, trapped behind the glass, waiting for someone to look too closely, to get too curious, to let me out. And maybe that someone will be you. Because the next time you look into a mirror, look carefully. Make sure the reflection you see is really yours. Because if it isn't, it's already too late.
Some stories fade with time, but these, they never really end. Because somewhere out there, the mirror still waits, the whispers still call, and the house, it still has room for one more. Maybe that one is you. You turn off the screen. You shake off the feeling. It's just a story, right? Just words, just voices in the dark. But tell me, why does it feel like something is listening? Like something has followed you from the screen into your room? Maybe it's just your mind playing tricks, a shadow moving where it shouldn't, a sound that doesn't belong. Or maybe you've just been chosen. That's the thing about stories like these. You hear them, you fear them, but the real horror, it doesn't end when the video stops. It lingers. It waits. It finds a way in. And when you finally close your eyes tonight, in that perfect moment of silence, just before sleep takes you, listen closely. Do you hear it? A whisper, a breath, or something else? Because once you hear it, it hears you too. And some stories, once they find you, they never let go. So, before you go, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who loves horror, and subscribe for more terrifying stories. Turn on the notifications because you never know when the next story might find you. Good night.